Greetings, Vault Hunters, and welcome to Echoes from the Borderlands, the podcast where we explore the iconic Borderlands franchise through conversations with the writers, devs, artists, and others who are responsible for its creation and its success. I'm your host, Joel Watson, and today we are taking a side quest from our main mission and talking about the subtle art, the beautiful science of doing a funny voice and saying things like, suck my taint, or shoot my taint, or hey, taint face, go taint a ass. We're talking voiceover in the Borderlands games. I'm joined by Associate Director of Narrative for Gearbox and producer of this very podcast, April Johnson, and voice actor, director, and Gearbox V-Overlord, Joel McDonald. Welcome, Lesser Joel.
Other Joel.
And Superlative April.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I want to establish that baseline right here. It's we're enemies and we're on the same side.
We are, not just because we're both on the couch together.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's couch team. It's team couch. I want to do a weird little voyage through voiceover real quick. Before we get to Borderlands-specific voiceover, let's talk about voiceover in video games. The Borderlands franchise features dozens of main characters, hundreds of background characters, and thousands upon thousands of lines of dialogue. All of it has to be written, edited, cast, directed, acted, recorded. My guests have experience in all aspects of that process, so let's talk about the importance of voiceover to the Borderlands franchise, as well as the video game industry as a whole. What do you say?
I think that's the largest topic you could introduce.
For real, yeah.
And just be like, hey, tell me your thoughts about this mildly hot button topic. Speaking like specifically to Borderlands games is that I firmly believe that we are exceptional at writing characters. Memorable characters and folks that sort of stick in your craw.
Get stuck in your ribs.
Stuck in your ribs. You would want to sop them up with a biscuit.
Oh, this is biscuit character content.
And with that is because we've also cast such phenomenal voice actors.
Okay.
And Joel can speak a little bit to sort of the freedom that we give, particularly the Vault Hunters, the player characters, and the villains, the sort of freedom we give them in the booth to make it unique and make it their own.
Is everything she's saying a lie, Joel?
Not everything.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's true. I think it's true. I think just for Gearbox in particular, and I think for the games industry as a whole, I think there's been these huge leaps in letting actors dive into these increasingly complex characters and environments. And so it's, I don't know if there's been like a stylistic shift exactly, but I think the amount or the depth to which actors are allowed to kind of explore their roles, I think it's become very evident how much value is in that. And so I think everybody's doing it. I think like when you can really like cast the right actor in the right role and let them sink their teeth into it and let them explore it kind of from the inside, add their own flavor, make it themselves to a certain degree. I think the value of that is just unparalleled. It's crazy.
Let's take 1,000 steps back. The first time I heard what I would call a voice in a video game, I remember playing Super Monaco Grand Prix on Sega Genesis.
Humble brag.
And I'm old.
Did you have a Sega Genesis and an SNES?
No, I was a one console kid.
I had both.
Yeah. In that game, in your settings, you could cycle through all of the sound bits. And then you would get to the voices that would be like, checker flag. like it was like not words. It was like the hissed, dying gasps of the oldest person to ever die, right? Mm-hmm. Like it was just nothing. And I'm not even sure if it was human voice that started those or if it was synthesized. For me, obviously, the PlayStation generation, the 32-bit generation, was that the first time you experienced voice acting in a video game?
For me, it would have been like, it's crystal clear in my mind. It was a PC game called The Seventh Guest.
I was going to say The Seventh Guest.
Dude, right? Because it's that good. So one, like what that was able to do for like body capture and stuff. But it was the first time that like I can remember, one, my dad had to go like build a new tower to hold all the data for it. A game that, by the way, now you can play on an iPhone.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, right.
Just,
what year would this be? Like 92, 93?
Oh, I don't like it when you say
91.
it out loud.
Yeah.
It's the rudest thing you've ever said.
I feel
to
like
me.
it was earlier than that.
Is that
but
an
I
attack?
don't know.
No, it was definitely early 90s, as so many things were. But it was the first time for me, like, experiencing, like, atmospheric, creepy voice. what it felt like to listen in on people whispering something like alluring in a corner, and along with the puzzle mechanic of someone telling you that's not right. I'm like, I don't know how the chess pieces move. But yeah, the seventh guest for me was really like the first time I was like, oh, I'm feeling connected to something.
Yeah. Did you have something besides the seventh guest?
Well, I mean, the seventh guest was one of the first ones that I played on my uncle's computer, and yeah, it blew me away. But like beyond that, I played a lot of early PS1 games,
Yeah.
and so like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, that kind of stuff. And I don't know, yeah, I think it's pretty clear that the voiceovers come a long way. Like I wouldn't, I don't want to disparage anyone who acted in any of those earlier games, but at the time, like just the virtue of the fact that there were voices was enough to like kind of keep people interested.
And so coincide that with, we specifically were young, the industry was young, everything felt right in line. It all felt like huge leaps every time. For me, it was Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver on PS1 and Dreamcast, where I went back to it not too long ago, and it is a rich, deep story. I would watch a movie of it. I think they're actively trying to shop it around right now for like a streaming series. It'd be great for that. I go back and check it out, and it's a little community theater, right?
Yeah,
like. Raziel, you must find the blade. And like,
I can remember watching the opening, and I'm using quotations not to diminish it, but like cinematic for a game called King's Quest VII. And I remember being absolutely blown away by like the singing, and it felt like watching the beginning of a Disney movie. And then I went back and played it like as an adult on an emulator, and I'm like, this is for sure MS Paint. You could not convince me otherwise.
Well, I think voiceover in general, I think, has come a long way. Like I used to, when my first audition for an anime studio in the Metroplex, I'd never seen anime before, but I was called in for something called Desert Punk, and I was like, I don't know anything about it except it's anime. So I looked up some anime, and I watched a lot of Speed Racer, and so like I went in with the most late 80s, early 90s anime over the top, just like,
so it's your fault. Yeah, you did it.
I didn't get cast because like it had already grown beyond me.
But Chim Chim's in the Mach 5. You gotta catch him.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. And Desert Punk is not at all that style. And so, yeah, I was kind of laughed out of the room, and rightly so. But yeah, I think like if you like identify
all right, so your line is the zombies are coming.
Yeah.
No. That's
Nailed it.
None of that's words.
Right.
When do you think video game VO either was taken seriously enough to be good or got good enough to be taken seriously?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh man, I think it would probably be some of the BioWare games.
Okay.
Because it was like, it couldn't just be good voice acting. It had to be paired, to me, it had to be paired with good storytelling.
Yeah.
And I think that might have been like earlier BioWare games. Probably. Yeah. I could be, also there's 1,000 people that are like, you are the wrongest wrong that ever wronged. It's this niche game over here.
Oh, well,
but
you're
I'm
on the
like,
internet, so yeah. You know how it goes. For me, it's like, when did it take that cinematic turn where it was less about one good character maybe with like one good voice and then a bunch of NPCs that really weren't just the people in the office, or was there a jump off point where it was like, no, we are like, okay, this is kind of gross, I feel bad, but the Brothers in Arms games.
No, I was going to say the early Brothers in Arms games.
I think were a huge leap in terms of story and identifiable, recognizable, realistic voices.
I agree. Well, and so I was going to say early Brothers in Arms games, and also like even early Assassin's Creed games, which I loved. And like if you play those older ones, like it looks like someone painted faces on balloons. Like the visuals weren't there yet. But like the characters, and like I mean they even had, was it Kristen Bell was in like one of them early on,
Assassin's
and like,
Creed.
Yeah. Like they started getting like attracting the attention of like prominent actors, like, and not just voice actors who I love to death, but like actors from other mediums.
Real actors is what you mean.
Hey.
I would never. But and so I think like when your visuals are, I mean they were innovative for the time and they were kind of cutting edge, but like when your visuals aren't where you want them to be, I think that's where people start putting more attention on the voices and the stories and how everything plays together, the music, all the other elements, and I think that's when you started seeing games kind of understand their parameters and start to lean into them.
To wrap that up then, when do you think video game voiceover elevated, like a performance of recent time where in recent games history where you're like, damn, this is on par with the best acting I've seen?
Honestly, I've struggled to pick one because I think that video game VO and VO in general, I think just kind of is constantly leapfrogging over itself. Like I think every actors love taking down the king,
Right.
And so like I was just playing Far Cry 6 the other day, which I'm a little behind on, but like Giancarlo Esposito is just a stunning performance, and of course you got Troy Baker in a lot of stuff.
Is he in video games?
He's started doing video games.
Okay, cool.
Actually, I was just playing Miles Morales the other day, and Darren DePaul, who's taken over the role of Jonah Jameson, just as a flabbergasting job, and it's not like a main character, essential character or anything, but like I think what you're seeing more and more is that actors are keenly aware of when everybody else is winning, and everybody wants to win just a little bit more.
I think you got Chris Judge at the top of the pile. You got rest in peace, Lance Reddick. I mean. What an amazing ability to go, this is the only voice I do. It's mine. Yeah. It's my regular voice, and you desperately want it. Yeah. Like, it's applicable everywhere, and it's iconic. Keith David.
Yep.
I think those are people that you're like, whoa, they got gargoyles, they got Goliath in this game. Yeah. Like,
well, when we got to work with Will Arnett in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and he was amazing in the very first session. That's usually reserved for kind of setting and establishing the voice. And he was like, so what kind of voice do you want from me? And we're like, that's the one,
sir.
The Will Arnett-ish voice that you do.
We played with a few other things, but like we just kept coming back to like I don't know. It was it's iconic. It's super fun.
So let's talk about the early days of Gearbox and Borderlands VO versus today. Every vocal performance begins with a script. I know that we have a fully staffed and robust narrative department at Gearbox. Was it always that way?
It wasn't. That is a very good, many-faceted question. So in the prior days of Gearbox, so your BL1, BL2, we and Brothers in Arms, it would have been the lead writer, because we used to only have one writer doing most of the writing, and then everybody would sort of be like, oh, hands on deck, I can write some VOBD or whatever. And they would be with the creative director, and the lead writer would be very close to each other, sort of in each other's pockets, creating that content.
Little kangaroo
little kangaroo, but they would get in each other's hoodies, and we
made them wear the shirt that you put kids that are arguing
Get Along shirt.
Get Along
we
shirt.
had put the Get Along shirt on these people.
You can't come out until you write a script.
And then as we started getting larger and people started getting more refined in their disciplines, right? So it's not just, oh, you're a designer, so you're making levels, missions, enemies. It's like, we have mission designers, we have level artists. So they decided to refine that process a bit for narrative as well. So we grew into a narrative department. And that actually, Joel and I were very early on in the narrative department at its inception. So we had producers.
So whatever's wrong with it
is all
the poison that you planted.
Was definitely my fault. No, we're going to blame Randy Varnell. And so we had producers that worked on narrative before, and we'd had producers that had worked localization. Those were always part of Gearbox. But like, they dedicated me to narrative production and working on building that department.
Is it safe to say that, like, sort of part and parcel with this conversation of when was voiceover taken seriously, that's when it was taken seriously internally?
It wasn't that it wasn't taken seriously, but we realized the benefit to having a dedicated VO director.
Right.
And that was when, for Borderlands 3, when we had an in-house, which would have been Joel, an in-house director, we had someone who, which was me, who was like wrangling the writers and localization full time. It was like, writers' rooms are a full-time gig. Like, there's no like putting your toe in there and being like, I'm going to be here for 10 minutes.
No, you're
boys.
like nanny for the Muppet Babies.
I always, the way I referred to it earlier in the narrative department, when like we were just starting it out, like that first few years, as being a den mom, or being like the college advisor, like the RA. The RA. I was like the most adult person in the room. at certain times. But yeah, Joel actually made a case for a full-time VO director.
Yeah. I was when I first started interviewing they were looking for a contract director for Borderlands 3 that would just kind of do periodic contracts that would loop as needed. And I'd worked on Borderlands 2 with Gearbox as an actor. I've worked for a handful of different other game companies and studios, and worked in the anime world for a while. But we all make mistakes. But I was able to talk to Mark Petty and a few others about the benefit of having someone on the ground working with the writers and kind of helping to conceptualize VO performances long before we even send out audition sides.
Shout out to Mark Petty. I don't know his official job title. I know he's in charge of audio things here, but he helped us set up this podcast. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
In those early days, as you begin these Borderlands writers' room, well, actually, first question. We've already talked to Mikey Newman and Randy Pitchford about the writing of 1. It's as you described. They did it together in a sweaty closet, and then came out 3 days later with a script and no memory of what had happened.
And it would have been very similar for Borderlands 2 with Birch.
So by Borderlands 3, we've got a writer's room.
We have a writer's room, and we have more than one writer.
Borderlands has always been joke heavy. Do Borderlands writers compete for jokes?
So
that was a guttural.
Look. I love the writers dearly, so dearly. I never want to leave the narrative department. I'll die in the walls. They'll just find me 30 years later.
We'll just have you back there for that painting, yeah.
It is a thing where I like to describe it as like all ships rise in the tide, and like you're sharpening each other. So there is sort of this thing where we would be in the room and we'd be like shooting lines back at each other, and it's like particularly good when all of us would just go, fuck you. And we would just be like, that's it. That's the one.
It's knowing that you've been bested, but you're happy about it.
Well, because the best content for the game is the best content for the game.
Right.
And that's really what a collaborative experience in a writer's room is. It's like, yeah, occasionally we'll be like, oh, I really thought my joke was going to be the one. But the real talent and the real skill to me, and every writer we have on staff has it, is it's making someone laugh and then making someone feel something so deeply a few lines in. Like Anthony Birch writing that line for BL2 where like you're dealing with Handsome Jack being just like an absolute persnickety asshole for so long, and you're starting to see like the cracks in him, and they go, what's the password? And he goes, I love you. And you're just like, ugh. Yeah. Like, it's just such a thing where you're hearing this like diamond pony boner fart joke, and then you're getting like 5 hours later in the game, you're getting
Have you guys done your diamond pony boner fart jokes for the day? I don't have time.
I mean, I know I'm biased, but like I think I love how Borderlands uses humor for stuff like that, and like I don't know if there's anybody that does it better, maybe as good, but like I think one
that's
of the things,
bold,
dude. I've always hated like heavy drama, like the Arthur Miller stuff, because I can't identify with these characters.
Hot take on Arthur Miller.
I know, right? You knew it was coming.
Dropping some knowledge on Arthur Miller.
It's topical.
All the TikTok kids have opinions on this. I hate. You know what, dude? I hate that fucking book. I hate The Crucible so much.
I've never come across an Arthur Miller I really enjoyed, but it's all because it's so heavy. It's so like drama ridden, and like you don't care. Like if all you do is cry, then you're just crying more. But like I think Borderlands does such a good job, and like the writers have like maintained this forever of being able to like if you can get someone to laugh with you, you can make them cry with you.
Absolutely.
And if you can catch them off guard, if you can get them where they live, like when they don't see it coming, like that's when the real stuff happens.
Is that reversal the subtlest cut? Like, is it like, I gotcha, you think you're having a good time, it's not going to be good for long.
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of the sugar cubes that get you into the barn, and then you're like, oh no, it's a glue factory.
Yeah.
Like it's
Borderlands is the emotional glue factory of video games.
Sure.
That's perfect. You fight for the best joke. Do you punish for the worst joke?
So, worst joke is relative. So the worst jokes, to me, I have such like a like I clench my jaw whenever the writers and Joel and Varnell and everyone sort of connect to that. We'll get in a feedback loop of puns, and I'm like, we have work to do. We have work to do. They're like, nope, we're just going to see who has the best pun, and it's just like 40 minutes.
I experienced this.
It's terribly wonderful.
It's
Behind-
both of those words are true.
Behind the scenes, Joel McDonald came up with the name of this podcast. He pitched it as something else, and I stole it from him.
It's true.
I'm sorry, but it's the right name. And we went back to the writers and said, "Hey, if we don't have to steal Joel's idea, can you give me a few others?" And they just punned themselves until my laptop exploded.
Yeah.
And it was unhelpful but hilarious.
Go ahead.
No, well, I was gonna say, I thought so. When I first started, the narrative, the writer's room was a different room, and I think somebody had taken a dry erase marker and written "word nerds" across the glass door,
And dialogue
Word
cabin.
nerds. Well, yeah, and then we moved to another room. And we're like, well, what are we gonna put up on the wall now? Like,
Yeah.
what's the name of our spot? And we spent 40 minutes or so just coming up with ideas. I won with dialogue cabin, which we eventually wrote on the door. But it was like everyone was just like, okay, that's it. That's very good. We need you to leave for a minute.
Get out.
Yeah.
Get out.
Randy Varnell is the president of Gearbox Properties now, was like managing all
He's
of
my boss, and I think he's
He's
very
my
handsome.
boss too.
Right.
He's very tall.
I think he is wise when it comes to doling out raises. Anyway, go ahead.
But he would say puns that were so terrible that we would just point to the door.
Get out.
Yeah.
And we would make him leave. We were like, "You can't be in here till you need to go think about
You
what
are
you've done for an
threatening
hour."
energy for this peaceful place.
I remember his birthday was a few months after I got hired. I was hired in February.
You used to wear the
almost 6 years.
coolest leather
I
jacket.
know, right? But his birthday came up, and I knew it, and I knew he loved puns. I hadn't been around it a lot, but like I knew it. So I bought him this game. I can't remember what it was, like Punderdome or something like that. It was
Beyond Punderdome.
it was a pun-oriented game, and like I bring it to him like to work or whatever, and I hand it to him in the writers' room, and every other writer was like, "How dare you?"
You
Yeah, you have given a brick of cocaine to an addict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just sat in the
This is
corner all day going,
unforgivable.
and like just reading stuff.
That's a great Varnell. It's either that noise or he puts his arms up like this. He's like,
Boy, like Superstar.
yeah.
Let's talk about early days of the recording process in a physical sense. I've recorded with Gearbox in those days,
Yep.
and it was in a closet
Yep,
full
sure.
of Gatorade and foam.
Yep.
Wires coming out of the ceiling tiles, 1,000 degrees.
Yeah.
Is this everyone's experience?
No.
Not here. No, we haven't walked away from closets. Like if an actor's got a closet like that, we still dabble in remote recording and have for quite a while. So closets are still on the table.
We embrace the closet lifestyle.
But dude, we got a very, very nice studio here.
yeah,
Yeah.
no. Now so you don't have. If you came on 3, we had our studio big boy pants on at that point. Then we were doing
Yeah.
things right.
There were still wire nuts being capped onto stuff and everything,
Right.
but like it was ready.
We were still doing, but we definitely still had a sort of Wild West vibe where we would go, "Oh no, we forgot we wrote that echo log. Can you come in here and record this?" Like there was still us sort of scaffolding and spackling things
Right.
with internal talent.
Well, okay, let's talk about internal talent versus pro actors. It's really common, whether people realize it or not, up until a certain point, there weren't video game voice actors.
Sure.
There was a combination of maybe voiceover professionals that just knew how to be on mic, the occasional known actor, but then also who's in the office. There was a lot of who's in the office actors. You can find executives from studios, that are like main characters in voice games and stuff, in video games. So, when was Gearbox's shift, or was there one, from DIY to like this is a big deal?
It was around the time I came on board, and one of the first things that I did, one of the first company-wide emails that I sent out was
Like a fool.
Dude,
You were so
I know.
brave
It was so dumb.
to send that
well,
out.
I sent out a company-wide email that just said it was called Gearbox Audition Gasm 2019 or whatever it was, and I was looking for what we used to do. Was we would stub in VO, and so we would have internal quote unquote actors come in and play these roles to give us a sense of timing and all kinds of other stuff. And it was just a fun opportunity for people who worked on these titles to play around
Right.
and show off for each other and all that. We've got some incredibly talented people here. But one of the things that I became aware of pretty quickly is that there are certain stages in game development where people can get spread a little thin. As much of a Herculean effort as our team leads do of making sure no one gets burnt out and everyone's mental health is taken care of, it's impressive. But everyone's going to have tight spots. And if their tight spots overlap with VO's tight spots, like we can't rock forward with that. So, everyone is going to have to be replaced. And in Borderlands 3, there were just a couple of notable exceptions. But for the most part, we need people that, have their own schedules and timelines to deal with, but they're being, kind of contracted and kind of and properly compensated to come in and work with us.
Yeah.
So when using internal Gearbox employees as talent, did you find any diamonds in the rough?
So we had Elisa, who was working here at the time, was Tyrene. We had Blythe, who popped in as Genevieve, and Mike Cosner was
Typhon de Leon.
Typhon de Leon, yes. And so they ended up they temped in the roles originally, and once we actually started running auditions and kind of stacking everyone up against each other, there were decisions made throughout the studio that these were the voices we were in love with. And it was,
I don't think anyone could have done a better job than Blythe of the monkey sex noises.
That was one of my favorite sessions, yeah.
Because it was just like Joel telling someone, all right, let's do like casual monkey sex noises. Like you're starting to get excited, but you're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And it's just her like making these guttural noises.
I told her at one point, I was like, I'm just going to leave the mic open, leave the track open. You just do about 30 seconds of monkey sex noises. I'll cut you off when we've hit 30 seconds. And I think Sam was in the room with me.
It would have been Sam.
Sam and Danny, maybe. And so there were the writers that were observing. And at about the 30-second mark, I start to lean towards the talkback mic to tell her she can stop. And they grabbed my wrist.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare stop the magic that's happening. How would you rob us of this experience? A full minute and a half of monkey sex noises?
Right.
It's my ringtone.
And like everyone in narrative at the time did a couple like very small voices that you might not even ever hear in the game. And it was just it was basically, like I said earlier, it was just like Band-Aids.
Yeah.
Just bandages
being
like...
Varnell was an Echolog. Sam was Barista Bot.
Yeah.
I think Danny had, I can't remember the name of the...
Beans.
Beans, that's
Danny
what it
was Beans.
Yeah.
And we all did Walla. So we all just stood in a booth and
screamed. For the uninitiated, what's Walla?
Walla is crowd noise. I was originally taught that it stood for with all actors, but I was recently told, or recently found doing some research on something else, that it was the actual word that old school radio back in the 1920s, they used to just throw a couple of like radio employees into the booth and just go walla 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 walla, and then they would record a couple of tracks of that, stack them all on top of each other, and it becomes
rhubarb.
A crowd scene. So yeah,
so weird.
Yeah. So we would have 4 to 5 of us around a mic, and then Andrew Cheney would be in the booth, who's like the audio engineer, and it would just be like, okay, you're excited about this thing. Okay, you're witnessing a murder. Okay, you're seeing this. Voila! Voila! And so we would just scream in varying degrees, and they would layer it on. So we did a lot of that.
Was Borderlands 3 the last time that we're able to do DIY Band-Aids?
Yeah, very much so. And honestly, I think even to a certain degree, I think that was something we were already trying to mitigate during Borderlands 3, just because everyone's busy. Everyone's got other stuff to do. And we have a really robust local voice actor community to pull from. It's ridiculous not to make use of them.
Local voice actors looking for you.
Right. In your area.
In your area. Yeah, they're looking for your area.
Yeah.
In your area. April, you often throw around a word that sounds like 90s gangster rap slang.
Oh my goodness.
It's loc.
Localization. So localization is taking a game and getting it localized for other territories and other languages. So that isn't just a 1-for-1. That isn't like A to B. There's actually like...
It's not Google Translate.
It's not Google Translate. So you have to contextualize it for a language and for a territory. I love localization because one of Gearbox like passions and kind of one of our internal mottos is like we want to entertain the world. Mm-hmm. And you can't entertain the world if you're only doing it in one language.
Right.
But with localization, and 2K has an incredible localization house. Like the same team has been localizing Borderlands in German since the first Borderlands.
Oh, wow.
Which is really important because Borderlands has a lot of make 'em up words. Mm-hmm. It is these absurd language and having someone that already understands like our context and tone. And one of my I have two favorite localization experiences, but I get to experience one of them every game. And that is localization will send us a very, very large, sometimes 800 to 900 cell spreadsheet. And it'll have all these lines that the writers have written. And there's just a blank space that says, tell me why this is funny.
And it's just not a justification.
No, it's just like, I need you to give me the context for this line because I have to put that in German because we have to contextualize that for Portuguese.
And then how often is it like, Germans do not find this funny?
Well, they have to find a way to make it work for their language. So it might be inserting a German idiom. It might be making it a pun, but it works in Japanese. Like it's like I said, it's not a 1-for-1. And we get a lot of compliments whenever we've had, like I remember Anthony Nicholson when he was doing the press tour in Asia, particularly for Bounty of Blood, which was the third DLC for BL3. Mm-hmm. The press was like, the Japanese version of this is so incredible. And like 2K made efforts to get well-known, well-respected Japanese actors for it.
So it's almost a rewriting process before.
Completely. It's a complete process. And more recently, it's sort of become a thing that we understand a little bit more because probably in the past 5 or 6 years, we finally get Pokemon games simultaneously released. They used to get released in Japan first, go through the localization process, and then come to America. So it's like, it's such a big thing now to do it. And not only do you have to contextualize language, but you have to contextualize what you're seeing. So like week 1 of my job, like day 4, when I moved from operations into narrative, Randy Varnell was like, you seem like you've got localization in hand, finger guns, bye. And he just like sort of
pun, bye.
Bye. And just him and a beard just left my office. And one of the mission designers and the writers were like, hey, we want to do this mission, but we're unsure of if we can do it or not. Can you check? And I was like, all right, explain it to me. And they explained the mission, and I sort of tilted my head. And I had to write to localization and write to these grown people with real email addresses.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like kittenboots69 at AOL. It's like real people, and it's like 2K at the back of their email address. And I had to say, hey,
kittenboots at 2k.com.
Quick question. What can and I cannot do? Like, what am I able to do to a dead body involving a spork? And they were like, oh, great question. So you can stick a spork in and you can take a spork out. But you know what you can't do? In and out. And I was like, okay, great. They were like,
no piston action on the sport.
No. They're like, you can't basically like.
I love that this person went, fucking 5th time today. I've got a spork question.
And so
I copy paste from my answers.
Like, don't.
These are the spork answers.
Yeah, you have to have like, and because Borderlands is an M-rated game, we can do things a little bit differently. But yeah, you have to have like very specific questions on like immolation for bodies. And there's a reason that you can turn the splatter, like the gore off. So like the gore physics in BL3 are incredible. And so you can basically turn that off for localization purposes. Like they can make the choice to do it. Wow. But yeah, it is a very weird thing to be like, tell me why you're funny. Also, hey, don't do anything sexual with a fork to a dead body. It's like,
you're not the boss of me.
Like, who tells me what to do?
Is there a chart that it's like, so you've got a spork and you'd like to stick it in a dead body? Here's okay. Here, Yeah,
and it's because my question was like, man, I think in one of the BioShock games you're able to like place bees in a body as a bomb, but
bee-body bomb.
Bee-body bomb. But they were like, no, you can do
body
this.
bomb.
Because we also have to do a mission in BL3 where you cut off someone's arm. And they were like, hey, you can do that, but you can't keep doing it. And I was like, well, how many arms do you think he has?
Can I keep it?
Once I've cut the arm off, it's just gone.
Well, I mean, theoretically, I can only do it twice to the same person. So.
Or keep chopping the arm. But yeah, so it's...
like dicing it and julienning it?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it is always like, I just get an email where they're like, can you explain what dump truck ass means? And I'm like, I sure can.
Sanitation is taken very seriously in Japan. They do not find this funny. It's a skilled job. It's well paying. What joke are you trying to make?
But yeah, the 2K Loc folks have the patience of saints. And I'm very appreciative of them.
Have you had a we're grown-ups doing grown-up jobs experience here?
Daily. Like it's to not have that for any amount of time would be shocking. It's Very much so. We every once in a while, I'll be asked to write battle dialogue or something kind of minor for the team. And one of my first things when I first started, I'd been with the company a week or so, and I was still kind of getting to know everybody. And like you always when you're kind of meeting a new people, you're like, how much do I show my ass?
Right.
And for you so far, 2 for 2, it's a lot.
It
like
can be
up at the top.
But at one point, all the writers were like, "Hey, man, we're behind the gun on a bunch of names that we're supposed to come up with. We need a bunch of sexually themed weapon names for Tedior."
They
I'm your
couldn't have
guy.
found. They
No,
couldn't
Torg.
Torg. They couldn't have found a better person.
And but like no one knew me that well, and I didn't know them. But like we have to go to a meeting. We'll be gone for about 2 hours. Can you just whip up as many sexually themed weapon names for Torg as you can? And I was like, got it. And they leave, and they came back 2 hours later to a list of well over 200 names, and they were like, we can't use these.
Not one.
Not a single one.
Okay, you got the sides, right?
Yeah, should I just start from the top and run straight through, or?
Yeah. Well, when you're ready, we're recording.
Gearbox and 2K are offering a new bundle that contains every Borderlands game to date for one great price. It's called the Borderlands Collection Pandora's Box, and it's available now on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. How's that?
Great. But let's take it one more time from the top, and this time just good.
Good?
Yeah, like everything you just did, all those same words, but say them good instead of bad and dumb.
So just good.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Oh, okay. Gearbox and 2K.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Just, I don't think I was being clear. Okay, so it's my fault. So what I meant by good was the opposite of what you're doing and who you are.
Oh, I've heard the note, and I'm taking it. Gearbox and 2K.
Okay, all right. So, hey, is it too late to get the claptrap guy?
Yeah, but are we paying for that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Lots of people want to work in video game voiceover.
It's true.
Ooh.
It is a high-demand, aspirational career, I think.
Absolutely.
Is that because of realistic expectations or the opposite?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think the best voice actors make it look fun and easy.
Sure.
And I think especially in places like Gearbox, where we allow, I think maybe an exceptional amount of experimentation and play in the booth, where the actors kind of have a little bit more leeway to experiment and play and explore.
Assassin's Creed's actors aren't offering their takes on boner jokes.
Well. Actually, I did see. Did you see the video that Heacock was passing around the other day, and it was outtakes from, was it Baldur's Gate? Or something? There's some really. I think it happens. It's just not always.
Just doesn't make it in the game.
Exactly. Yeah. But I don't know. It's and especially I think with these actors being out on the convention circuit and kind of talking about the behind the scenes and like how much playing there is, I think, yeah. I mean, it's of course you would want to work,
but it's not
video game VO.
It's by no means an easy job.
No, it's not spiritually similar to writing and VO acting. Is that the buy-in is fairly inexpensive, meaning, oh, I can write with a piece of paper and a pen. I can write with this. VO acting is like, oh, well, I can do silly voices and there's a microphone. Well, that's really simple. And it's like, yeah, but like, can you keep that voice and maintain that voice through like every consonant in the alphabet? Can you maintain that while saying like battle dialogue of things like "you smell like my little girl"? Like, can you, which is a real line of dialogue that's in BL2. Can you maintain that? And it's just, it's not easy.
And very few people are a video game voice actor or an anime voice actor or a commercial voice actor. I mean, there is some specialization, but for the most part, if you want to make it in the industry, specialization is for insects. You've got to be able to do it all. Like, so that's why you see, a lot of the cast from Borderlands, several Borderlands games comes from Dragon Ball Z or One Piece or any number of the locally produced anime titles.
You got Sabbath.
Yeah. Colin Clinkenbeard.
You got Chris Rager.
Eric Vale, Kent Williams. The list
goes on and on.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's not. It's not the Dragon Ball connection that puts them in the game. Is it literally the proximity? Like, we have a huge dubbing industry in Dallas.
Sure.
We're very close to Dallas. Is that serendipity? Like, is it just
Yeah.
this nice little pool of talent?
It's just these people are working all over the place. Like Eric Vale, who's played, I think he was Boom and Boom in Borderlands 2. He's also the yeah, exactly. He's also the voice of the Dallas Stars.
Right.
Ian Sinclair, who is
Ladies and gentlemen, your Dallas Stars.
and Ian Sinclair, who's the Trance in Borderlands 3. He was the voice of Raising Cane's for a while.
Oh my God.
He's in a bunch of anime and stuff
He
too.
lost out to Post Malone. Oh, God.
Oh no, poor
But
Ian.
all these people work all over the place, and so like we're always looking for up and coming actors or established actors. Like we want, like we explore the casting pool to find out who's out there, who we want to work with, who we want to engage with, and they're looking for places and studios to record just as much as we're looking for them. So
Right.
so it's bound to happen eventually.
I would think that it would work both ways, where it's very beneficial to Gearbox to have that pool of talent nearby. It's very beneficial to that pool of talent to have a AAA game studio in their backyard too.
Sure, yeah, but we've also, now that we're leaning more and more into the joys of remote recording, like you know, April mentioned earlier that the Gearbox kind of creed is entertain the world, and I said from my very first day at the company, I talked to Varnell and Randy Pitchford about I want to cast the world, I want everybody, I want to be able to like find the right actor on a different continent, and bring everybody together. I want other languages. I want accents and dialects that are authentic. I want representation of all kinds of people. And so step by step, there's always kind of a transition period when you kind of go from a more fledgling company that's always kind of done things a certain way into what's effectively the big leagues.
Right.
And so but in order to gain access to those people from all over, we've been able to widen our scope, and we're never going to ignore our local heroes that have helped to kind of build the franchise. But at the same time, like now everyone has to work a lot harder
Right.
because there's so much competition and we're able to access so much of it. And I don't know, I think the quality bar continues to rise because of that, not just here, but everywhere.
Is it safe to say that doing silly voices can be where that career starts, but it's certainly not where it ends?
It is almost always where it starts. Like silly voices and impressions are just kind of how everyone starts to explore the industry. The first time I even knew voice acting was a thing was when I was a kid, and I realized that Grover and Yoda sounded a lot alike.
And Miss Piggy.
And Miss Piggy, and it kind of started. I also thought that Louis Armstrong was the voice of these people for a period of time, because it just kind of seemed to work for me. But anyway, you start to just bit by bit kind of come into an understanding of this is a lifestyle. This is something that people do. And I think then it necessarily turns into inhabiting a character, becoming like emotionally invested and being able to create a story and to share it with somebody.
To April's earlier point about what it takes to stay in a character, I feel like there is an unspoken element to this that doesn't hit a lot of aspiring voice actors until they're actually really trying to do it, is thinking in that character's head, and then not having to say, well, okay, you should always talk to your director, but like not having to ask how would my character feel about this, kind of knowing. Right? Like
that's a very kind of Meisner technique sort of thing, if you want to get really granular with it. But like it's there's kind of the idea that an actor in character should respond if and when the character does.
Right.
And not before. And so that means, and I said in some of my earlier interviews with the company that like voice acting in itself is great, and you can have some really impactful lines, you can have some just wonderful moments of dialogue and connection and things like that. But to me, where impact lives is in silence. And I think that's when you hear an actor embodying a character between the lines, in between the syllables and everything, and it's just these moments of like screw you and the horse you rode in on, and just really there's so many ways to play with those moments, and they only exist when the actor is aware that the character is created in the interim, like that the words are a symptom, I guess, of the disease of being an actor.
April, do you feel like the Borderlands games have given actors that kind of meaty, chewy part, or do you think that's evolved as the games have evolved?
I think that's evolved as the games has evolved. I think so when we get lines quoted at us, when we like see people at conventions or we meet people in the wild, the thing that is most commonly quoted to us is battle dialogue. It's always battle dialogue. And so
proclamations, exclamations.
Right. It's the things that you hear when you're in combat. And so we've always had that in the game, but as we've grown, the game has gotten more ambitious. The amount of VOBD has gotten more ambitious, and like how deep we're willing to go into character and how deep we want to go into character. And because the Vault Hunters often come back as NPCs, we get to go and re-explore that, their characterization, and the actors get to re-explore that. So yeah, I think making it sound cool and sound believable has always been a part of Borderlands games, but I think that we are growing and we are more invested in that now than we ever have been. But it's always been something Gearbox as a whole was passionate about, was like, we didn't want it to sound wooden or non-affected. Like you
Right.
wanted it to be like, we make these big bombastic games and they're absurd. And so we want to have like the ability for folks to come in and just be like, okay, well, this is the silliest thing I could say, but can I say it dramatically? Can I say it
Right.
convincingly? Can I say it and deliver it in a way to where you as a player have just accepted, like, that's just the tone and this is that person and I'm in. So yeah.
We've talked a little bit as we sort of talk about the actual job, the business of voiceover in video games. We've talked a little bit about each of your sort of backstories and how you came into this. But Joel, what did you do before Gearbox?
Before Gearbox, I worked as a VO director in the anime world. I was over at Funimation, over at Flower Mound at the time. But I was a VO director, actor, and adaptive script writer for them. And before that, I was a master carpenter of Dallas Children's Theater. I did rigging work and stage electrics and everything. And so, like, I was a handsy, manly dude for a minute.
I have
Did you have a tool belt?
He does.
Yeah, I got a few. Yeah,
I have a dining room table that Joel actually made for me.
that's right.
Yeah.
And you sit there and think about him as you have like pastas and like.
Yeah, it's mostly where I do puzzles because
okay.
I'm an elder.
Okay, that's right. That's right. You dodder around in your house coat
I
and
do.
slippies and
Sip my tea and I'm like, Joel, what a table you've made.
What
Is this
a
a 45-degree angle?
structurally sound table.
What sort of joint is this?
Is that the kind of thoughts you hope to have in your old age, where it's like, molding,
Yeah. Yeah.
sturdy?
I have
wood?
just comforting thoughts about my surroundings where I'm like, I just want to be whatever the sleepy time tea bear is. Like, that's just how I want to live the last 30 years of my life.
See you anamorphing into that.
I feel like your path into games is fairly linear, if that makes sense. You took skills that translate directly into what we're doing here. Did you feel any kind of shift between the anime world and video game voiceover world?
Oh yeah, very much so. The video game voiceover is a lot more kinetic, dynamic. Like the stories are still being made, whereas in dubbing, you well, at least when I started at the company, we would get finished products. We're like, hey, this has been out in Japan for 2 years. Make it English now, go. And it was straightforward. And whereas games are in flux, sometimes pretty well into the process, despite everyone's best intentions. And so there's a lot of kind of being able to roll with punches, being able to adapt and to adjust to, changing criteria and all that. So it's been, there has been a learning curve, but I don't know, so far so good.
I think you've been doing great.
Sure.
April, did you have a traditional path into this weird industry?
100% no. So prior to coming into Gearbox into operations, I was actually a full-time yoga teacher. So I taught hot and power flow, which means I would basically spend 3 to 4 hours a day doing push-ups in a 90-degree
I teach
room.
hot and I teach power flow.
You decide which
you
one.
pick which class you're showing up to.
Yeah, so I did that. And as I was doing it, I loved it, and it's the thing I love doing most in the world is teaching yoga. But I was like, oh man, there's no 401k for this shit. So I came over to Gearbox. I'd always been huge into games, and I always had a big love for them.
I decided to get a boring job.
Decided to go to the old salt mill. And so I came into Gearbox in operations. And then when they were building the narrative department, they were like, hey, that kid upstairs sure does have grit. Mostly they were like,
I like the cut of her jib.
mostly they were like, she seems good at de-escalation. We should bring her down here into this environment.
Did you learn that in yoga? De-escalation?
Actually from bartending, but a little bit from yoga, because I think the strongest transferable skill that I got from yoga that translated to making games was When you are teaching yoga, you go into a room and there's anywhere from 10, 20, 30, 40 people in that room.
Right.
And they are getting one piece of information from you. So I am instructing them, guiding them, for lack of a better word, providing them choreography. So you're able to see very quickly, oh, I said a thing and it has been interpreted 15 different ways.
Right.
I said a thing and 20 different people all moved their body differently to how that interpretation works for them. I just sort of like picked that up and clicked that over working with writers where you're like, oh, I'm giving you a piece of information. And then you get to see how they ingest that and who needs more time
Who's
or
crying.
more space. No, but it also is like, it also leads to this environment of being like, I don't get offended or upset if someone comes back to me and says, hey, I have some feedback on how that was delivered. Or, hey, I need more information. I'm not like, why didn't you get it the first time, dildo? I'm just like, hey, we're all products of context, meaning our backgrounds, how much sleep we had, how much coffee we had, what we're feeling at any given point in time. So that was the best thing, was coming from an environment in yoga, which is all about the context we carry with us as humans.
It's safe to say there's certainly more than one path into video games.
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one, you could talk to every single person at Gearbox and they will all have like a buck wild way they got here. And I think that's I think that's a thing that Gearbox should be and is proud of, that like some of our incredibly talented concept artists started in operations, right? We have folks that are managing directors of production, senior project producers that started in QA,
Yeah.
right? So like how you get here, we want life experience and different backgrounds and stories.
I actually had someone contact me on Facebook last night saying, hey, I don't want to bug you. I wanted to apply for this job that Gearbox has posted. I
Yeah.
just want to ask you if you think it's worth it. It says you need 10 years experience in AAA game production. I've only got 18 years in animation production. And I was like, is it even worth it for me to apply? And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, literally my background, like that's how I got this job.
and we let you in the door.
Yeah, I mean, so jack off can do it. Anybody can do it. But like, it's. I think people think there's this velvet rope that says no, video games are special, and it's like, no, your talent is special and valuable, and if you can add to this big meat stew of talent and weird things, then like we absolutely want that.
Yeah. It's not, no, I don't want to like, it is not an easy industry to get into.
Not at all, but 18 years experience.
Yeah, you're good.
I mean, come on.
Well, and like our associate producer of narrative, like Katie Heacock, Katie was in the Navy and had worked at Disney. And I just looked at those two skill sets and I was like, well, if someone can deal with being in the United States Navy and was a Jungle Cruise skipper, there's absolutely nothing that we can do that she wouldn't be able to have a plan for or be able to react to and solve it.
You think she can still do the script, the Jungle Cruise
I
script?
bet she could.
That would be something I would enjoy.
Matt, when we were taking applications for an assistant VO director, we got some really fascinating applications from people that were just like, I want to have a beer with this person. Like there was a guy who was like, he's diffused bombs in Afghanistan and like worked at the CIA and like all this other kind of stuff. No entertainment experience at all, but I'm just like, this is fascinating. And there were some really, really compelling, interesting people that threw their names in the hat. There were also people that were just like, here's a picture of my license. That's it. We got some really wild stuff. There was
Deal with it.
There was a questionnaire that
Mic
they had to
drop.
fill out, and one of the questions, like there was somebody skipped every question on the questionnaire except for
That's a bold choice.
except for would you theoretically be willing to move to the Frisco area?
Okay.
She said no, and then it was why do you think this is a good fit for you? And then she said my husband says I have to get a job.
Hey, I
Otherwise
support
it was
her.
blank, and I was like, you know what? She's doing great. Like she,
Yeah. She had that. She had the Navy. She had Jungle Cruise. Like this is a whole package.
Yeah.
It's not the same person. Let's talk about the components that bring a video game voice acted performance to life. Script, casting, director, actor. You have both written for Borderlands games. Are there any plot elements or characters that you put into this franchise that you are proud of, or even single lines of dialogue?
Man, I'm trying to. don't remember if there were any characters that I've added. There were definitely some echo logs that I wrote in Borderlands 3 around the pain and terror, murder circus kind of thing. That I get to write some more or less unique characters for that. Mostly, I love writing battle dialogue, and it gets tedious after a while because it's hundreds, if not thousands, of barks and one-liners. But for one of the pirate skeletons that you fight in Wonderlands ended up being my buddy Ian, so they're all very piratey and yar and da da da. But like one of my favorites was where he goes, "Yeehaw! That's right, I'm bilingual." And just being able to get away with stupid crap like that, not all the time. Like it still has to be driven, but like I love that.
That's not
I love
bad.
playing. Yeah,
I think so. Some of the stuff that I've written, like it hasn't seen the light of day quite yet. But I think like my favorite contribution was that I got to play around with was we knew we had to go do a table read for a Wonderlands game when we were working on Wonderlands, and so Sam Winkler, who is the lead writer on that, was like, "Hey, can you just do like a random accent for this table read?" Like I'm not an actor, like it's not a thing. I'm not like acting is my passion. I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude, I'll do it. And so I based it on my aunt. And so we gave her the Minnesota accent, ofta.
Yeah.
And so we liked it so much that we ended up casting an actress because I'm like, it couldn't be me. It shouldn't be me. But we ended up casting someone for that. So that was, I think...
Well, and that's also why they I think didn't after we added the dialect, didn't they change the height? Because she was a soda shop owner.
Right.
And they shortened her, so now she's a mini soda.
Minnesota.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Ofta.
Oh.
You go down. Yeah, it was
boy.
great. So that was some of the stuff. But yeah,
I got to write for one of the DLCs. I think it was the Handsome Jackpot DLC. I got to write a bunch of battle dialogue for the Goliath, and I love the Goliath because he's so stupid. And Chris Rager is one of my favorite people. He's a great actor. But I ended up not intentionally at first, but after a while, it became a thing where I was putting in stuff that my camping buddies have said in the past, like when just in drunken rages on camping trips, because it's basically.
Do they always end that way?
Oh, they start
that way?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
But like the whole thing was that a Goliath is at a casino and can't get out, and he's been stuck there forever, and so it's just him like still not knowing that his vacation isn't really over yet. He's kind of stuck there now, and so it's this Goliath wandering around going Margarita. And it's just stuff my drunk camping buddies have said. It's really fun.
I feel like that the Handsome Jackpot, which was our first DLC for BL3, which we made with GSQ, so which is our
DLC, BL3, GSQ. What do you
GSQ,
do?
which is our Gearbox Quebec City. And so there's something really fun about getting to work with the Quebecers. Like
Quebecois?
The Quebecois. They're really into where our humor overlaps is always kind of like a fun spot to see. Because at one point we were doing something they had a list of what we would call dad jokes. Like, hey, these are some dad jokes. And they wrote it as daddy's jokes. And I was like, oh, that is a different connotation.
Oh, boy.
But I had a good time with that. But no, when we
That's
did,
a localization issue.
Yeah, it's true.
that's exactly
learning.
what it
Yeah,
is.
we're learning.
But we had a really good time on that, the Handsome Jackpot, because we just got to write people that had been trapped in a casino for so long.
I'm not over daddy's jokes. I'm sorry.
No one's over daddy's jokes. It'll haunt your dreams. But getting to do that was the only battle dialogue I've ever performed. And Joel was just like messaging me. He's like, "Could you do a transatlantic accent?" And I was like, "Yeah, who among us?"
Yeah.
Right. And so I got to go in and play a
Slot machine, right?
slot machine that doesn't want to be in combat. So it was just like running away, but also
regretful
sounding like
slot
Katherine
machine.
Hepburn. Yeah, it was. And for the kids out there,
Oh, well, this is no good.
yeah, it was basically just
I
like
don't want to be here at all.
the future is now, just like nonsense like that. But yeah, that was a great
Who's
time.
shooting all these bullets at me? I don't like any of this. Do we have a favorite casting get for Borderlands? Someone that you were like, this is who needs to play this part, and then you got him?
I can name a lot of them. One of my favorite stories from the time I've been at Gearbox so far is when we were conceptualizing some of the cast for Borderlands 3. And we weren't ready to audition yet. We were still kind of putting the finishing touches on some characters, many of which had been in development for years, at that point already. But the writers approached me about doing a vocal exploration. Basically, we wanted to try out an accent on a particular character and see how that jived with their sensibilities about the role. And again, I said we weren't ready for auditioning. They just wanted to hear it and see if that's what we wanted to cast a wider net for. And so they were like, we want a British, but a very particular kind of British, and they sent me some clips from Attack the Block, which is fantastic.
Indecipherable British.
Yeah.
Subtitles on British.
And they were like, we want to try this out, and I was like, tell you what, I was like, if you're not sure, I got a buddy that I'm going to be seeing pretty soon. We're both on the convention circuit together, and so I took some material to my friend Kieran Strange, and Kieran had just, I think, within months before that, announced his transition. And that he was had kind of come out as a trans man, and I think I knew that, but I hadn't been around him since that transition. But anyway, he's got that voice, and so I approached him at the convention. Yeah, very much so. And so I approached him at the convention, and we talked a little bit, and we didn't even know each other super well. Like, we'd gone out for drinks a couple times with some other people, but anyway, I was like, could you put this down? It's not an audition. This is just, it'd be basically doing me a favor. And then once we get to auditions, if we do decide to go that direction, maybe I can get you to, throw your name in the hat and all that. It was, so he knocked something out, like after we got back home from the con. And he sent it over, and I played it for the team. And I was like, this is already really exciting. And I played it for the team, and they're like, oh, my God, this is amazing. This is what we want for this character. Cast her right now. And I was like, I was like, this is Kieran Strands. And everyone got really excited because, of course, as love it or hate it, Gearbox go stay woke, and we
don't go broke.
No, nope. So far so good. But we'd never had a trans character represented in the game before, and the writers got really excited about the opportunity to authentically represent somebody from a community that we had previously not had the chance to explore. And so I talked to Kieran about, would you be willing to have some conversations with the writing team about a direction this character could go? We want it to be authentic. We want it to be real. Not only did Kieran eventually book the role once we got through the audition process and everything, but worked very closely with the narrative team to make sure that everything was done respectfully and in a way that was showed the community in a good light. And Kieran just recently won a gaming award, GAYMING, for representation and
for New Tales.
Correct.
And it was the first I believe first character in video game history where we've seen a transition across multiple titles.
Wow.
So when we first meet Lorelei in Borderlands 3. Female by the time and then starts to explore his identity through Bunkers and Badasses in Wonderlands, and then we finally get to meet him in his true self in New Tales. As Laura. Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you had other actors not, I don't want to say correct you, but like gut check you on, is this appropriate? Like, is this authentic?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Cian Barry, who plays Zane, who's definitely got kind of an Irish tilt to him in Borderlands. He was really helpful. He actually improvised, or not improvised, but he sang a little bit of a traditional Irish song about penises. I don't know. I don't remember if it made it into the game or not.
The one they opened church with. Yeah.
There was Zara Fuzzle, who was able to improvise bits of additional dialogue in one of the many languages she speaks for Amara, one of the player characters in Borderlands 3. It's that. I think that's one of the things that casting authentically and appropriately gives you that anything else doesn't. Is you get to. You allow the actor to experiment within a realm that you don't and can't understand the same way they do. And so if you trust them and if you give them a little bit of flexibility to kind of just show us what you can do, tell me where I'm wrong, help guide this character. That's what actors are there to do, and they love it.
Well, that takes us into directing. How much, in film, you whether you're wrong if you think this, but pretty much everybody gives the director full credit for the entire movie.
Right.
How much influence does a video game voiceover director really have on the final product?
I'd like to say a lot, but realistically, I've always said that a voiceover director, regardless of the kind of project, is in a support position, which means that we're there to help the writers to realize the vision that they've put down. We're there to support the story by casting well, and we're there to support the actors by providing them with the tools and information they need to make the right choices and to build something worthwhile. But I think any entertainment or artistic endeavor is full of people who trust each other to do their unique jobs. And so while I'd like to think that I leave a directorial fingerprint at times, for the most part, I'm a kind of a translator between, here's
Right.
what the writers and the script need you to know. Here's the map, because the script is a map, and it gives us what we need to make these choices. But it's our job to turn it into something more three-dimensional.
Are you the sort of entity that the writers can trust to not have to direct it themselves or whatever? It's a different skill, but it's like, hey man,
I'd like to think so.
I wrote this character. I really hope it turns out this way. All right.
Yeah, well, and I also almost always invite the actor or the writers into the room so that they can contribute. Now, I will insist that I be the only voice that talks to the actor, but the writers get to talk to me.
Just because you like the sound of it.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
I'm a professional. But so the writers are like, I want their input before the casting process and the audition process and everything, and I want their input throughout as well. And I was telling somebody just the other day about I actually played on a previous Borderlands DLC years before I was ever hired as a director. I was playing a robot in a Borderlands DLC, and just appeared as a mission giver in one side quest. And he says, my girlfriend Stella, who's another robot, lost her wig, and yeah.
Can you find it for me?
This was an Anthony Birch original. Can you find it? And it was a very, very straightforward thing. Anthony Birch was in the room, and so the director or the engineer asked me to kind of play with a way to make the voice sound robotic, but they were like, we don't want it too stilted. The robots in Borderlands are typically kind of human sounding, but like we want something that indicates that. And so I started doing this thing where certain words I would always repeat the exact same way, like it was like there was only one take in the database kind of thing. And so every time I would say the girlfriend's name, I'd say Stella, and it had all the same inflection every single time. And Anthony got really excited, and he started writing and adapting lines in real time to put that word in more often. And then I think he ended up writing a couple other lines. And so that's the environment that I try to foster is that everyone is there to contribute and there to be a creative in your own corners, but all those corners come together into something that's bigger than all of us.
Right.
And so I think if you have a writer there, if you have an actor who's encouraged to play, and if I kind of keep an eye on, okay, maybe we jumped the shark there. Let's kind of rein it in.
It's a band at that point. The song is
so.
the thing, and the band has to make it happen. Like it's a creative collaboration that I think goes unseen.
Yeah.
Most of the time,
and probably should. Most directors don't care about awards or interviews or anything like that. We just want to work, same as everybody
You're
else.
just humble.
Just a regular guy.
Just
a regular,
like anybody else.
Very wealthy guy. But I think it's one of those things that, like, if you notice the direction, you're probably missing out on some other cool stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah. April, you played a transatlantic slot machine.
I did.
You have also played in Borderlands 3, crew member number 9.
Oh, yeah, because I got an IMDb.
Mm-hmm. Crimson Raider Norma.
That's right.
And Bandit Walla, as we've talked about.
It does not list my role in 2 DLCs, which is Transatlantic Robot Slot Machine. And the second one was I did 1 echo log where I was basically captured and eaten in the second DLC for BL3.
As what?
Basically, I have a mic and I'm listening. It's like a slow descent into madness. It's like I play a scientist who's hearing the sounds of this like sort of eldritch god, and is hearing voices. And so like the last line is basically me being like, "Did you hear that?" And then it's just like snarl death. So yeah, that's all the acting I ever want to do.
You don't have aspirations beyond transatlantic slot. Once you've done transatlantic slot machine, you've peaked.
Once you've said, "That's your hand, boys," you're just sort of like, where else do I go?
It's down, only down.
21, hey, big spender.
It's like you're like the Mary Shelley of voice acting.
Right,
one and
and done.
Perfected it. Done.
That's why Joel let me do a few roles, because he's like, "Oh, you're not thirsty for this." I was almost eye-rolly put upon. I was like, "Ugh, fine, Joel."
Fine, I'll do a voice. Joel, the opposite. You're thirsty as hell, it seems.
It was.
Your IMDb has, My Hero, Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho.
I was in Yu Yu Hakusho?
Or not.
Joel just shows up.
I think you were. But also your photo, and Vault Hunters.
dang it.
Vault Hunters. Go look up Joel McDonald's IMDb photo. I can only describe it as intensely sexual Creed. Right?
Yeah,
like Scott Stapp with doomy eyes.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
So we had to prepare a PowerPoint presentation about our wonderful Matthew Ward, cinematic director of cinematics here at Gearbox.
He's the cinematic director on this very podcast.
I can
April.
see him right now, but he had to prepare this PowerPoint
Big stuff.
that we had to send out. And I was like, Joel, I need a picture of you for this. And he sent me a picture of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. And I was like, Joel, that's not what I asked for. And so I said, fine, I'm going to go to IMDb. And he was like, April, no.
No. So
we presented this presentation about our department with that picture of Joel.
Yeah.
And I promised you it wouldn't go wide, but it's on the internet,
know,
man. I can't
but
stop that.
I will say, so every time I do like a podcast or an appearance or a convention or something like that, when they ask for a headshot, if I have a chance, I will always send a different picture of Robert Downey Jr. And it's gotten, I've got about a 35% success rate.
Boy.
It's pretty good.
Joel, as I went through your IMDb, I feel like Captain Flint in Borderlands 2 is one of your larger characters in the franchise.
Yeah.
But tell me about Tector Hadunk.
Tector Hodunk, yeah. No, he's there are a couple of side quests that kind of revolve around the long-standing feud between the Zaffords and the Hodunks. And so...
Zaffords, get off my property!
Yeah, very much so. Well, and the Zaffords are Irish equivalents, and then the Hodunks are... me and April's people. Like we're from
Hill
the deep
people.
south. Yeah,
we're,
exactly.
We're
yeah.
swamp people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Ian Sinclair, again a good friend of mine ever since our theater days. He plays the family patriarch, whose name I don't remember, but I was I believe the oldest
Daddy
son.
Hodunk.
Daddy Hodunk, I believe that.
That sounds like us.
I have no idea.
But yeah, he would speak in this like old Appalachian hill country gibberish, and I would translate for him. And I appeared in Tales from the Borderlands for the same as the same character. But yeah, they and Captain Flint kind of.
How
appeared.
did the gibberish work?
So Ian would just kind of improvise gibberish and just but like we found out it works. Like it sounded kind of spitty and insane if there wasn't anything behind it. And so I believe it was Eric Vale was a contract director on the project at the time, and he would whisper random phrases into the microphone and Ian would gibberishize them. And so like Eric would say like one time I ate a pillow, and Ian would go, "When can I eat a pillow?" And so they did the entire game like that. Yeah,
That should be the main character of the next Borderlands game. That's awesome.
a player character in a wheelchair. Yeah. Which would be great.
Actors surprise you in the booth. We've talked about how we allow them space to breathe, space to improv, space to influence the character. Has there been any improvs that have changed the character permanently? Just something unexpected, a sound, a noise, a particular line read?
Once you start hearing their take on it and you hear them embodying the character, we've been like, oh, we will adjust some lines in later scripts to service that more, to give them more opportunity to add that to it or add their take on it. We've definitely done that.
You've talked about Ian Sinclair a lot. Captain Trant?
Yeah, so that was something that I still think it would have been really funny. So Ian, when he was Captain Trant and then General Trant, both played by Ian, we kill the first one, and then the other one's mad that his brother got
Large
killed.
Trant family.
Very much so.
They're not involved with the Hodunks in the...
No,
No.
not here.
Okay.
But basically, he came in, we were kind of establishing the voice, and we spent some time kind of exploring, like, maybe we want to do it this way, and kind of playing with some different formulas. And at one point, in the middle of a line, he burps really loud and directly on mic. And
A thing everyone with headphones loves.
sure, exactly. But in true actor fashion, he stayed in character and picked up the line where he burped and just kept going. And it caught us off guard so much that we all just started cackling. And I was like, "Can you do that on cue?" And he was like, "Yeah." So we played with it for a while where he was the burping enemy. And we thought it was really, really funny. We didn't know if it was going to stick or not, but apparently it was, it needed to be removed for reasons beyond our control. Apparently,
Right.
there are some cultures you just don't burp repeatedly at
Is
people.
that another localization issue?
Telling you, man, we're sneaky.
I want to circle back a bit because we've talked about how Gearbox has fully embraced remote recording, remote work in a lot of ways. We build games with teams that are all over this country and others. How did the pandemic either institute that, affect it, perfect it?
So obviously remote recording was a thing already back in the days of Borderlands 3 and beyond. Borderlands 3 just being kind of my introduction into the Gearbox world. But one of our main characters lived in London. Several lived in California, and so we were already well versed enough in it. But of course, the pandemic shook things up for a lot of people, and the fact that we suddenly had to lean into remote recording. One of the easier problems to solve about a global pandemic,
Sure.
so not to
Of all the industries that ground to a halt,
right.
video
Right.
game voice acting was not one of them.
No, and there was a learning curve, absolutely, and so a lot of actors were like, I tried to buy a pop screen, a mic stand, and some packing blankets on Amazon. I think in the early days of the pandemic, I couldn't find those things to save my life. Everybody it was like the shelves were bare because everyone was trying to figure out how to do this from home, and so some actors were more adept at and skilled at kind of slipping into that space than others, but not every actor is a capable engineer or has a good recording setup or anything. And so, most
The skills are not mutually exclusive.
but at the same time, you had some people that had been learning for a while and just kind of ramped it up, but others that were just like, I want to be a star and I've never thought about a thing.
I've never had a thought in my head.
I'm not pushing any buttons.
Very, very much so. And so, we were all kind of figuring it out. And what we did in the early days was we put together these recording kits, and the audio team where they did all this research into what mics would work best. Just putting together everything in a one of those things with the foam padding,
Yeah,
or whatever, and the
flight case, a
cutouts.
flight
And,
case.
Yeah, and Andrew Cheney, who is a saint among men, not only did he have step-by-step and step instructions, he had pictures.
Like IKEA furniture.
And he had a checklist, and he had it laminated. It was just like chef kiss. It was incredible, the work that Cheney did.
But and then we would send those kits out. We would help the actors set them up. We would do a sound test and everything, and then we would record. And then of course there's added work on the back end for mixing and implementing and everything, just to make everything sound equalized and like it was recorded in the right space. But we had some weirdness. I know we had our first session with Andy Samberg on Wonderlands, and we had told him in the directions it said, you need to set this up in a closet or something with a lot of soft goods to absorb the sound. And when he first turned his camera on for our very first session, he's in just this giant white room, and with bare walls everywhere. And I was like, we talked for a minute, kind of got to know each other, and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I hate to do this, but did you get that thing that says it'd be best if it was in a closet, and everything? And he was like, well, yeah. He was like, but this is where I set up to record stuff for Disney and Pixar, so it should be okay. I was like, cool, duly noted. And he was like, and also, this is a closet. I was like, oh my God.
You see, Joel, I'm very wealthy.
You poor.
Yeah.
Oh,
we did
you
have.
must be poor.
We had a session with poor Chris Rager, who plays Torg and the Goliath.
We're not saying poor as opposed to Andy Samberg, who's rich.
Right. No,
just
actually, I want to commit
But
to
we
both.
are? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's fair.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. But yeah, we got him one of the recording kits. I think Andrew even stuck around to help him kind of set it up and everything, masked up, different rooms, all that. And then we recorded a session with him. And he screamed for Torg. Torg only records at an 11. He screams bloody
Yeah,
murder.
and the Goliath rage is at a 17.
exactly.
It is so intense.
And Chris is a rock star, and but he
Hercule on Dragon Ball, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So similar.
Yeah,
Similar
and then
tone.
he's everywhere. Arlong, I think, in One Piece, and anyway, he yells a lot. It's his thing. But he even in studio, he will walk into the studio, into the booth with a roll of paper towels, and then just mop sweat off of him as he.
The literal rage of the Rager,
Yeah.
the Rager rage.
But yeah, we would typically for Torg sessions, because we go through it quick and he doesn't have any chance to vocally rest, we would typically do 20, maybe 30-minute sessions. We wouldn't get that many cues. Because to push an actor well beyond their limits like that is just cruel. But we did an entire session from his home studio that we helped him set up in his closet, and then he forgot to hit record. That was
That's why we say poor Rager.
poor
Poor Rager.
He can't afford buttons.
Yeah, we got it fixed. We got it figured out. But yeah, that's a mistake you only make once. Yeah.
I think that's the same mistake of like, what's our backup recording for this podcast? Like, if we had done this for hour and a half, and then somebody forgot to hit record, I'd quit.
Sure.
Like, I'd go into the ocean, probably.
Yeah, wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
As I'm going through, April, you've suggested that you both started in the thick of Borderlands 3.
We did.
And as I'm going through the voice cast on Borderlands 3, a name sticks out that I can't avoid. It's Ice-T.
Yeah.
Tell me about Ice-T
Man,
in Borderlands 3.
That was great. That was super. One, it was really exciting because it's like we used to have these narrative meetings when we were all in the meat space, right? And we would all be in this thing we called the War Room, and we'd have like Pitchford there, and the creative director Paul Sage for BL3, and like Keith Schuler, and like all these director folks would be in there. And Pitchford just gets a call and like puts it on speaker, and it's Ice-T, and it's just like, hey, you want to do this role? Yeah, it was just
a cash call.
It was super cash call, and so we were like, "Holy moly, that'd be great." We knew we wanted it we didn't want it to be like this large role because like dude's busy, right? So we were like,
he's on the 90th season of SVU,
right?
or whatever.
So it's like, hey, how can you like strategically use this like really unique voice and this really specific actor? And so we ended up casting him as Balax. And Joel was just like giddy, delighted.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude, I really wanted it. I wanted him on site so I could bring in my VHS copy of Leprechaun in the Hood.
But like kind of the most unique conversation around Ice-T was like twofold. So one, we didn't want to stop him, but also you couldn't get him to stop saying fuck.
Yeah.
And we'd never used the F word in a Borderlands game.
But he gets it, right?
He does. So we had to have a big meeting, like a real meeting with people with suits, and we had to have like a real deliberation on, hey, we are M-rated, but like we've kind of been kept that type of language out of it, right? Because there's a difference between because it's America, we're really fine with violence and immolation and decapitation apparently. But if like someone's parent walks into a room and they hear like
spork torture,
all the things we can do to a dead body. But if someone's parent walks, like a kid's parent walks into a room and hears a lot of profanity, they'll stop and be like, what are you doing, right? So it's like, hey, we just don't
torture, Mom, get out of here.
Get on out of here. So we just never really had it. So we basically had this like big deliberation. We were like, well,
yeah,
if you're gonna say it,
who better?
a better person than
I just remember
Ice?
Paul Sage said at the time, he said, he was like, asking Ice-T not to say fuck is like wearing sunglasses to the Louvre.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's right.
Oh my.
And we were like,
you are destroying art.
yeah. And so we were like, okay. And so we did it. And we got two.
We got two. Yeah.
What are the lines?
One of them is from when we are first introduced to Balax. And I think he yells, somebody help me, I'm in a big fucking dinosaur that's trying to eat him. And then another one is in a Marauders Day additional content
It's
pack.
almost an Easter egg. It's so small.
It's and I think it's a low occurrence, and so it doesn't happen often. But so after we get Balax back to our ship, spoilers from several years ago, he becomes the navigations or the PA system for Sanctuary. And so occasionally you just hear Ice-T saying the most random stuff, which is delightful. But at one point during the Marauders Day thing, the Christmas kind of equivalent, you hear him say, "Hey, which one of y'all put this Santa hat on me? I fucking love it." It's a thing of beauty.
Once you gave Ice-T permission to record those lines, could you stop him?
That's bold of you to assume anyone gives Ice-T permission to do anything.
Dude.
I'm sorry. You know what? I feel like a fool.
I loved every second working with him.
me.
We called each other. We texted back and forth a couple of times.
He was so great.
He's just an amazing
Did anyone
human.
ever suggest to rein him in, or did you realize
Yeah,
that was impossible?
no, we did. We absolutely did. And he's a consummate professional. He'll do, what needs to be done. But we also told him that we wanted him to explore and play. And so he absolutely did that. But I don't know. I was delighted to work with him. He was fantastic. Penn and Teller were great as well. Chris Hardwick. But Ice-T is exactly what you expect and want him to be.
That's awesome.
And
He's great.
after he was cast, we actually changed some of the art. So on the
That's right.
Balax bear that we put you basically put like the data chip, you put the robot voice, whatever, into this little plushie. and we changed it a little bit so it would be like more reflective.
It's on the plushie. It's it says FLTG, which is final level Twitter gang. It's
For Ice-T, yeah.
That's pretty
We
good.
threw it out there as an option. He was like, "Do that shit," and we did it.
You text him right now and just see what he's.
I deleted his number. I deleted his number because I was like, I know I'm gonna have too many drinks and be like, "Hey guys, watch this," and that's not how you want it to go.
You
A man's
you
got
think
to
I
know
can't
his
text
limitations.
Ice-T?
Yeah.
You think it?
Yeah.
You think I can't text Ice-T? I want to end this episode the way that we end all of our episodes, with our contest. Who does the best Marcus?
This is trash, and I'm going to tell you why it's trash.
This is trash.
Because I am single-handedly the only person that has had to sit opposite this with an actual voice actor.
Uh-huh.
So that's trash.
Our
Do you want to go first or second?
well, here's the thing.
I want to go second.
Here's the thing.
I want to
Our-
know who I like. Look, if you're going to go for the king, you can't miss.
Our leaders right now
Yeah.
are Randy Pitchford
Right.
and Anthony Birch.
Yeah.
So it's a high bar.
I know.
It's a high bar.
I feel like Birch and I already have the sidebar competition on who's the worst/best vegan. So
Okay.
like, at least I can beat him in something.
So the line is, so you want to hear a podcast, eh? April,
No, we're making Joel go first.
I was going to say the choice is to you.
Yeah,
So
Joel, you go first.
So you want to hear a podcast, eh?
It's not bad. It's not bad. April, I believe in you.
I'm going to tell you why this is double bullshit. Because when we
Double boiled bullshit.
when we do Temp VO for Marcus, do you know who does it?
It's
Joel.
usually me.
So, anyways, I'm going to participate in this because I'm what you call a sport.
I want to hear it. I'm going to close
All
my
right.
eyes.
So, you want to hear a podcast, huh?
April, that was so much better than you thought it was
For
going to
real?
be. Yes. That was, you're in the running.
It's all I've ever
You're in
wanted.
the running. It's just, you just wanted to be in the room where it happens.
I just wanted
you
to be
know?
in the room where it
Yeah,
happens. I
yeah,
just
yeah.
us to be included.
Thanks for joining us, Vault Hunters. If you aspire to be a voice actor in the video game industry, the obvious first step is subscribing to the audio version of Echoes from the Borderlands, wherever podcasts are available. If you want to be a video game voice director, like that, just drink and give up. Why? I mean, look, why? Why would you want to be a loc person?
Yeah, be loc. Be a
do
kingmaker.
localization. And then subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/gearboxofficial. Kingmaker. To see future episodes. If you play video games and you'd like to get every current Borderlands game at one great price, go snag our new bundle, the Borderlands Collection Pandora's Box, available now on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Huge thanks to my guest, April Johnson, who produced this show, and Joel McDonald, who begrudgingly named this show, as well as our behind-the-scenes heroes, Dakota Warren, Matthew Ward, and Hannah Terry. Our theme song is Get Out of My Head by Wandermind. For Echoes from the Borderlands, I'm Joel Watson. See you next time, Vault Hunters.